I am Captain Logan, and this is day 260 of Spawn Year. This story just took an unexpected and potentially fresh and exciting turn. By the end of this issue, Nyx has used the connection she forged with Al when she reunited him with the Spawn symbiote to transform herself into a pseudo she-Spawn. I am getting tired of using the word potential. It sounds like a backhanded compliment, and I hate to assume every cool or surprising development will turn out as a disappointment. Unfortunately, I've seen too many great ideas ultimately evaporate in a sad, anticlimactic poof of missed opportunity. Last arc may be no exception, as evidenced by my shock and dismay upon reading the first page of this issue that Spawn lying in defeat with the city in flames behind him was actually the conclusion of Night of 1,000 Clowns. Spawn remains in a coma here at a hospital, which mystifies doctors. By all accounts, he should be dead, and his powers seem to be the only thing keeping him alive. Once again, this is why it's entirely gimmicky to ever try to make me afraid for Spawn's life. We all know he'll pull through this coma, and no doubt he'll be on yet another journey to totally reinvent himself as Brian Hogwin or whoever happens to be writing struggles to find something for him to do. That last arc, drawn out as it was, seems all about taking Spawn out of the picture so Hogwin can make Nyx our sole point of view character for a while. And I really can't blame him. Nyx is Hogwin's own creation, or if McFarlane did co-create her, Hogwin at least is the only writer who's put any words in her mouth thus far, and she doesn't come with all that clunky history and baggage Al did when Hogwin came aboard and tried to make sense of that tangled tapestry. It would have seemed disingenuous and self-serving had Hogwin created his own Spawn out the gate, but he's been at this for several dozen issues by now, and as critical as I've been about a lot of his creative choices concerning Spawn's character direction, I have enormous respect for his thoughtful considerations of the implications of Spawn's selfish attitude and lack of motivation. He tried desperately to instill some real purpose in Spawn and make him consistent and more relatable, never mind his, in my estimation, ultimate inability to consistently make Spawn a guy I want to read about. Perhaps by the time he came aboard, that's just an egg nobody could crack. So I think he's earned this new direction. It didn't need to take a half-year arc that could have been done in half that time, or a cheap, standard mystical coma scenario. But at least if Spawn had to be written out in such a contrived way, it was finally in a heroic, selfless act. Frankly, I can't fathom what more there is to say with Al Simmons now, and I think I'd be satisfied with this as his permanent exit. But of course I had to read ahead that one time, and I know there's more head shaking at Spawn's expense for me to do down the road. I'm also fine with exploring Nyx as a kind of new Spawn, because I really like Hogwin's writing from her perspective here, and he's got some really interesting word choice in places. Nyx is quite the wordsmith as she describes the painful ritual she goes through to enter Hell and try to rescue Thea on her own, having finally chosen not to give Spawn over to Maman, and instead to circumvent that deal and take matters into her own hands. The dire consequences to be carried by her and her alone. See? Instantly more likable than Spawn. Nyx doesn't speak in vague riddles and meaningless poetics as Al so often did. She sounds like a real person with real feelings and relatable ideas and reactions to things. As she prepares to haul herself off from civilization and fast for 9 days in order to commune with a demon of discord who can get her into hell, she says this, which I like a lot. I'm all poise and bluster on the outside, but a dead man could smell the fear dripping from my pores. Even minor characters seem more lively and less generic than your average Spawn characters this issue. I like the dry-witted government agents Wolf and Hare, who come to the hospital to investigate, of course, the one man who survived an explosion that killed dozens of others. Sure, they're stereotypically deadpan, but they play it up like they're fully aware of how cliche they are. How's the coffee, Agent Wolf? Lukewarm dishwater, Agent Hare? Just like Mama Hare used to make. As I said, the 1,000 Clown scenario looks like a grand excuse to get rid of Spawn so Nyx can use a part of Letha without him stopping her. The most glaring thing is how Clown just quits terrorizing and killing people after Spawn goes into a coma. I get that it's Night of 1,000 Clowns, but was he always going to just walk away at daylight no matter what happened? Wasn't his whole plot to make Spawn as weak as possible and then create a hopeless situation he couldn't possibly solve? I think it would make more sense if Clown wants to totally break Spawn's spirit for Spawn to wake up from his coma to a city in complete chaos ruled by clowns. And speaking of, what happened to all the people Clown clownified? Did he take them all with him, or did they revert back to their original state? But never mind all that. As usual, we've got one story simply as a stair step to get us to the next one. Maybe those questions will be answered later, or more likely, Hogwin will just hope we'll have forgotten all about that while he's focusing on Nyx's descent into hell. Angel Medina draws most of this issue in his usual style, but the last 3 pages are done in a more minimalistic and limited bleak color palette, kind of a chalky style by Nat Jones, who, according to the solicitation for next issue, will continue this arc. I like his arc a lot, and I especially like Nyx's Spawn costume with the crazy fire hair. Overall, really strong issue, and bonus, more hell! This book is always better in hell. And I mean that in the nicest way possible. Signed, Captain Logan.